Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the ChatGTM podcast. It's Michael Beck, your irascible host here over at Inktank GTM, bringing you some of the most enlightening, entertaining, fun, wise, intelligent, and super professionals that operate in our industry. And today we are here. Actually, I'll save the introduction after I say hi to Chad real quick. Chad, what's up, man?
Yo, Beck.
What's
Hey, we're
happening?
back home.
We are
NRF
back.
was didn't kill us.
Whatever didn't kill us makes us stronger. And I feel
Exactly.
pretty strong.
Same.
Yeah. All right.
It definitely subbed out for my workouts. That was very good.
So tell me one highlight from NRF. I think I know what it is, though.
Yeah, the ferry rides every
Oh,
morning.
okay. See, I was
Uh,
thinking crashing robots.
yeah, that was fun.
We saw
That was
robots
fun.
crash. Yeah.
No, but the ferry ride back and forth from Jersey. Next, yeah, it was not only convenient logistically, scratch that box, for me, but it was like beautiful every
Yeah.
day.
So,
It's
pro
awesome.
tip to everybody, if you're going to New York and you don't have a thing about Jersey for some reason, you shouldn't because it's really nice. Is there's a place that is just above the Imperial Ferry that goes over to Midtown. And literally, you stay in this hotel. It's called the End View. It's on the water. You have the view from the hotel is the entire Manhattan skyline. Oh my God. So yeah, every day Chad and I woke up and we were just like kids in a candy store. We're taking pictures everywhere. We're taking pictures of sunsets, sunrises. I'm out doing walks, trying to get more pictures of the skyline. And I realized that you can only have so many pictures of the same skyline over and over again. But we did get lucky and we had the perfect angle to where you could see right down one corridor of Manhattan and have the sunrise on the other side coming through. And that was kind of amazing. So, but I think I'm being kind of a rude host here and I really need to introduce our guest so we can get her in the conversation. So, if you bear with me here, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Miss Toni Ronayne. Like, see, names matter. See, anyways, but today's guest is Toni Ronayne. She's a force in hospitality leadership who spent her career at the intersection of brand, people, and reinvention. From early operational leadership at Starbucks, Freshie, and Little Caesars to steering transformation at Perkins Food Company. We used to do business with them. I was at kind of the company I'm back in my previous life. And Toni has built a reputation for honoring what makes brands beloved while evolving them for what comes next. She is also the founder and CEO, and this is why I really want to talk to her, of the C Society, a collective redefining executive leadership through fractional C-suite talent across the hospitality industry. And I'm telling you, Chad, it's time for some new blood. Hate to say it. Uh, but anyway, she's not out just to create just strategic clarity. It's her people first philosophy, her insistence on persevering brand soul, and her candor about what it can actually take to grow, pivot, and lead when the stakes are real. This is a conversation about leadership without titles, innovation without ego, and building businesses that still feel human. I love the human aspect of it. And Toni, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, actually opened up for you now talk.
That was good.
Yeah, you know what? We used to have a piece of software that had green room, and I thought that was kind of cool. But then just having you there while we're bantering, going, "What the hell's going on?" That
Why
works too.
not? I
Yeah.
loved it.
So Toni, how are you this fine Friday? Before we get into our hard hitting Barbara Walter style questions.
Ooh, I'm doing great. This is exactly where I want to be at Friday at 2:17 p.m.
I love that. I love that. Chad, before we got on with Toni, what was like the burning question you had in mind for her?
So I know we haven't gotten into what the C Society is, but I will tell you, everybody watching, as part of this brand, there is a style here. There's an artistry, right? And it stands out to someone who doesn't get any of that natively, me. And so I want to know, Toni, from you, like branding, style,
Mm-hmm.
art, like where does all that come from?
I don't know where it comes from necessarily. I've obviously worked with really great brands. I have a real draw to aesthetic. I've often said if I didn't work in the restaurant industry, I would have been an interior designer.
Ooh,
Before I worked in the restaurant industry, I worked in the fashion industry. So I spent time, I was a
There we
makeup
go.
artist, I worked in retail, wore the Estee Lauder uniform. So there's definitely kind of this draw to the way that brands make you feel. And so as I was building my own company and my own brand, I enlisted the help of some resources, a great creative agency that I loved working with on another brand. And, spent a whole lot of time. It was a lot of fun being able to write my own brief for my own brand and my own company. And I wanted it to be, I wanted it to feel premium. I wanted it to feel curious. the idea of the society is like there's something happening behind closed doors. And so, our fractionals and the brands that we work with, we're all part of a membership collective. We're members. And so it was really intentional about how we built it and being able to kind of use all of the chaos in my brain and work with an agency that could bring that to life. And review kind of these different concepts. The one that we landed on is it hit right away, and it felt so
Mm.
authentic to who I am and what I'm building. And so I really appreciate that you appreciate it.
Well, Beck can tell you I'm not one to normally care about the appearances, but I wouldn't even come on this podcast today without getting a haircut first this
He
morning.
literally
So
told me he was getting a haircut before he got on the show with you, yet he won't cut his
Come
hair when we go to
on.
a trade show.
true.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, he's literally a scruffy-headed ninny muggins most days. Just saying.
I got another week or two now, or I'm good. Come.
Chad, your haircut looks fantastic.
Thank you.
Chad, this is like your best Friday ever.
Yeah, it's a pretty good Friday. Coming back off of a great show too, doesn't it?
Yeah, let's just keep the vibe rolling. So Toni, you kind of opened up the door here on this. You mentioned your career kind of began in hospitality, but kind of a little bit far from the C-suite. So tell us how your early work shaped your leadership philosophy today. Like, what lessons from those early jobs still guide you?
Mhm.
You've held executive and franchise development roles at major brands. Like, how did these experiences prepare you
Yeah.
for
I mean,
leadership and brand transformation?
Yeah, I mean, I had the privilege of working, with some really great leaders. I mean, early days in my career, I was a district manager at Starbucks. I had the largest volume portfolio in Canada, might have even been the highest transaction portfolio in North America at one point.
Are you
Uh,
Canadian?
yeah, no, I'm not. I live in Canada, but I'm born and raised in Chicago,
Okay.
but I've got a couple of Canadian kids and a British husband, and being able to stay in a neutral ground is helpful for that dynamic, as you can
Yeah.
imagine. But yeah, I started in operations, and so I always felt connected to the guest experience and to customer service, whether that was in retail or restaurant or hospitality. But Starbucks was really kind of the place where I feel like I got systems, knowledge, experience, expertise. I had great leadership, was able to hone my soft skills in that experience. And that kind of carried forward into my career. I then worked for Freshie. I was their VP of North American operations. And when I joined that company, we had about 250 locations. When I left, we were sitting at 500 locations across 17 countries. And that experience was fantastic because I was able to come in right after they had gone public. We liken the business to being a bit of an unruly teenager, and I was able to offer and impart all of this knowledge and wisdom of the systems and the process and playbooks and leadership that I took from Starbucks and really was able to build the playbook at Freshie. And, I had a founder that believed in me and he said, "Hey, what you've done in North America has been great. Now we'd like you to go do it in the rest of the world." So I traveled all around the world and saw the brand, and we were able to expand it in all sorts of different ways. And did that for about a year. My husband and I adopted our kids following that year, and so it didn't make a ton of sense for me to be flying to Australia or Europe. And he said, "Hey, let's look at franchise development for you." So I became the head of global franchising and was able to be on the other side and working with, not thinking about the talent that was working and operating in our restaurants per se, but the operators and making
Mm.
sure that we were bringing in the right leaders at the right time to grow the business. And so I think that diversity has really helped to shape my career and the opportunity to try new things. And then, of course, I moved into the managing director role at Little Caesars and then the brand president for Perkins. So I
Wow.
think that I think this road to where I'm at today has been happening kind of all along the journey. I definitely enjoy being able to explore all of the strengths that I have, as well as uncover how I can improve on my own weaknesses. And from a leadership standpoint, I think, I never lose sight of being the operator. And operations is the heart of every successful business in our industry. It's often forgotten, and when neglected, it can really hurt a brand. And I think as I think about a business, I look at it holistically now, sitting in a CEO seat, working as a fractional CEO for brands and recognizing that, you've got to have your operations right. That's your foundation. That's your bread and butter. It's one thing to be able to have a great marketing campaign, but you've got to be able to retain those guests when they come in. And that's never left me.
Yeah.
The other thing I share, and this is kind of something that I've carried with me in my whole career, is this idea of the three-legged stool. And that's, anytime you're looking at a strategic problem, you know, evaluating the data, getting the feedback from people around you that, might be smarter in that area or a subject matter expert, and then marrying that with your own observations. And that is a discipline and a systematic way that I approach kind of all of the things in my life. Certainly as I was building my own business, and something that I bring, to my fractional clients when I work with them as well.
I love that. Chad?
Tony, when you're looking at a leadership team at a brand, right?
Uh-huh.
How do you size it up, right? Do you look at the CEO? Do you look at the team dynamic, the makeup of the different people on the team? Like, what's your eval process?
So for me personally, one of my, core strengths is individualization. So I actually really enjoy the ability to connect with each individual person and to try and uncover number one, how I speak to their listening, but also, what motivates them and where their strengths lie. And I think that the best teams really offer a high level of diversity. And so whether I'm, looking to build my own team, I'm looking to understand kind of capabilities, values are very important to me.
Mm.
So I want to work with people that are like-minded and really motivated in the same way. And then also consider where some of those gaps might be on the team as I'm thinking to fill some of those holes. Um, I think that the best teams are the types of teams that welcome debate and transparency and differences of opinions. I think that's critical. And I would say that in my career, unfortunately, I've sat at many tables, and sometimes, some of the teams I've sat on, I might be the only dissenting point of view in the room, which is, kind of a challenge.
Mhm.
So I'm definitely cognizant of trying to unlock, what makes people tick. I believe that human beings in general are fascinating and magnificent and smart and have lots to offer. And I think that it's key for leaders to be able to unlock that potential in the people that they work with every day. So, as you go through an interview process or you're meeting somebody for the first time, for me, it's just as important to understand who they are at the core, probably more important than maybe the things that have made them successful up until that point. Because at the end of the day, leaders, we have to make decisions, multiple decisions throughout the week, probably hundreds of thousands of decisions across the year, and understanding what motivates somebody to make a good decision and the capability to do that, frankly, is something that I think is lacking in businesses today. Clarity, strategic thought, those things are critical. And I think that's part of why fractional leaders are so effective is they can plug and play into a business, provide that clear point of view. These are leaders that have had scars from the field. They've done the work. They've sat, in the C-suite, and now they're able to come in and very quickly diagnose a problem, provide clear leadership, exceptionally every time. And so I think that's what I would say about kind of the role of fractionals in that, and why they're such a value add to our industry today.
So I have 2 questions, but my second question is last. Well, now it's the last because this pops up. So why is fractional so heavy right now? Why is it such an important offering? Because I think people go, "Well, I could hire somebody and bring them on
Sure.
full time, or I could fractional." Why is that such a great play today?
So I think if you're observing that you see like it's becoming more relevant and it's growing, you're not wrong. We've seen fractional roles in the last 5 years, double if not triple. Not so much in our industry, but kind of across industries.
Mhm.
And and I think, as I was sitting back and observing my own choices and thinking about where I wanted to be, for women specifically, there is a whole focus on building portfolio lives. People are finding that there is a misalignment at times with the companies that they're working for. and the things that motivate them. And I think fractional leadership provides an opportunity not just to come in and be a consultant, but literally work hip on hip with other businesses and add that value. So I think the motivation for people to move from the corporate world into the fractional space really is about choosing a path that speaks to one's authenticity and plays to their strengths. And in the corporate world, not that there's anything wrong with it, but I do think that the the expectation is that you're working within a container. So you're a great operator. You focus on being the subject matter expert there. You're a great marketer. You're a great operator. Whereas the fractional world allows people to be authentically who they are and a whole representation of themselves. So I think you're seeing that transition of more people moving into this space, and it's very intentional. On the business side of things, and the question around, hey, why would I, bring in a fractional leader versus being able to hire somebody full time? Uh, I'm certainly not advocating for the C-suite to disappear altogether. What I advocate for is that the C-suite is evolving, and what you see in emerging brands or businesses is that they need clarity and strategic thought. They need direction. They need expertise just as much as some of the big guys do.
Right.
And fractional leadership makes that possible. So, you're not going to pay the same full-time overhead or costs that you might, bringing in a fractional leader. You're not paying total salary package here. You're probably signing somebody up for a project-based or retainer work.
Literally a
Yeah,
fraction of
a
the cost.
fraction of the work, which is,
Yeah.
the root of that word.
Yeah.
And so what this does is it really enables talent to be available at the moment that you need it, and in a way that provides momentum to the business. So we see this often where maybe a business has identified a full-time need. And I'll give you an example. I was talking with a client, and he said, oh, well, we're going to hire a full-time controller. And we started talking about, okay, well, why do you need the controller? And let's talk about your infrastructure and your business. And and instead, he opted to hire a fractional CFO,
Mm.
because the fractional CFO was able to do, kind of the tactical work that the controller would do, but was also able to come in and help to strategically provide the data, the feedback, and the insights that were required to steer the business in the right direction.
Mhm.
So I actually think in our industry, there's a lack of knowledge around fractional leadership. It's part of
Mhm.
why I decided to move into this space, because I believe that education is power, and there's as we think about businesses that are struggling with traffic, labor costs are through the roof. You're seeing lots of realignments, restructures, reorganizations, M&A activity, turnarounds, acquisitions. All of those types of moments are great, like a great opportunity for fractional leadership to come in, because you're going to
Yeah.
get this full-time impact without this full-time investment. Um, and so that's, I think, why you're starting to see that a little bit more. I would hope that part of it is because, you're seeing not just people in your network, but seeing the things that we're talking about at the C Society, because we want to be able to be kind of at the front of providing that education, that partnership to, these great founders and businesses that exist within the restaurant space.
And it feels, Tony, like there were limited options for fractional opportunity or fractional providers over the last 10 years. It really seems like in the last five or so, the last 15 years, but the last five or so, it seems it's popped up more, that there's a couple more people showing up on the scene. But typically, I could count on half of one hand who the ones I knew out here were. And so I'm glad to see
Right.
more options in the world, Yeah.
Well, and I think that's so when I started in this industry and doing this work, and the first thing I did was I just set up calls with people and said, "Hey, if you want to chat, I'd love to learn more." Like I said, trying to get the feedback from subject matter experts. Tell me more about this space.
Yeah.
And I heard two things from fractionals. One was, I really love the work, but I hate having to go out and find it. It takes me a long time to try and, build the
Mm.
case
Yeah.
to connect with a client.
Well, there's
And
a sales aspect to this whole thing too,
there's a
right?
whole sales component, right? And
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
and it's like any other founder, you're all of the jobs. So you're doing your invoicing, you're doing the strategy, you're meeting the clients, you're recruiting, all the things.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing that they said was, it can get really lonely and I feel like I'm on my own. And I love
Mm.
being a part of a community and I want, I'm used to working with people. And now that I'm on my own, I feel kind of alone. So I started thinking about building this hospitality collective
Yeah.
where, number one, we can work together and build this community so that you're not out there on an island. I think fractionals have been operating in our space for a very, very long time. And I can think of a handful that have been very successful.
Yeah.
But Michael, like when you and I jumped on the call, we didn't know each other. We've been living in the same space,
Yeah.
but meanwhile, I have, 30 fractional leaders right now that are in the Sea Society that are about to get on a kickoff call next week and meet one another and about to start sharing, information and stories and partnership and connection. And imagine, all of the people that those 30 people know. And so I think there's just uh, I think at a certain level, that's part of my mission is to be able to bring this group of people together so that good people are working with good people, and that ultimately we're able to drive solutions together. And so I think one of the things that's making us unique is that element of community, and we're kind of taking people, from all facets across every discipline and bringing them together in a way where we can actually be a team and we can support one another and help to ultimately revolutionize leadership in our industry. So, so it is about, I think there's a lot that have been kicking around and hanging out
Yeah.
on their own. But imagine if we all got together and did something, the impact that we could really have here.
Nothing
So
amazing was done by alone typically, right? And you're building
So
tribes,
true.
and that
I I
mind
wa-
share you have too, I imagine too. So sorry, Chad.
I keep wanting to hear you use the word hive or something because part of your brand is I see the honeybee everywhere. I
Yeah.
see the honeycomb with
Is
around the
there a
sea.
Mormon in your family? What's because that if you drive around Utah, there's
Mm.
bees everywhere, and it's about that honey to the hive.
There is no,
So is there an
there is,
analogy there? Are you the queen bee? What's up?
there
Okay.
is, yes. So, it's funny because there was a connection obviously to the bees in the hive, and that is the mentality around not the queen bee but rather you know uh, great brands don't grow alone, like
Yes.
great communities don't grow alone, like you never do anything on your own. And that's what it was. I mean, I started fractionally on my own, and then I thought, well, we could do so much more if there was more people involved. And so you picked up on it, Chad, and part of the aesthetic of the Sea Society is to have that level of intrigue. So as we went through the creative process, it was like, oh, should I be wearing a queen bee hat, and should we refer to things as honey and stinger and I said, "No, no, no,
A
like,
little
we're not
too
gonna
on the
we're not
nose.
we're not doing any of
Yeah.
that. We don't want it to be super obvious."
Yeah.
But I love the fact that you identified that shape and noticed the bee, and because 'cause you've seen some of my other materials. So yes, there is kind of the heart and the soul is the idea of kind of the bee and the magic that happens within the hive.
Love it. One of the questions I have is, when it comes to leadership transitions, it can be something kind of deeply personal. So, what was the most important inner shift you went through when moving
Mm,
from corporate leadership to founding your own company, the Sea Society? That's a whole mind shift.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I would say probably the 2025 for me was a very transformative year. I left Perkins American Food Company in March of 2025. It was all part of a full kind of organizational restructure. And going through this experience of kind of waking up on Monday morning and not having any calls and not having that team to talk to, and figuring out where I was going to find my joy and
Yeah.
find value was a bit of identity obstacle, frankly. So I spent the first couple of weeks thinking about figuring out what I wanted to do. um, I decided to just open up my calendar and I offered 30-minute time slots for people that were going through transitions or needed
Mm.
leadership coaching. And I just said, I'm just going to be here, and I can be here to listen to you. I can provide you advice or feedback. And I called that period of time the Shift Chronicles. And I took that feedback and those insights and I put them back out into my network, and I shared all of the wisdom that these brilliant minds shared with me. Um, And I was still kind of figuring out what I wanted to do and what that looked like. And I had a woman approach me and say, "Hey, I'd love for you to run my company and be the CEO." And she's a founder, and she's got a small brand. And I said, "Well, you wouldn't be able to afford to hire me as your CEO, nor would I advise you to do that. But let's see if there's a way that we can work together." And so that's when I started working fractionally and just completely fell in love with it. Um, and I think that it's funny as I talk to people that have known me for a long time that now see me doing this, and they've kind of said to me, "Oh, I'm not surprised that you started your own business. Like, I just kind of figured it was a matter of time." But for me, it was never on my radar. I mean, I've always been a company girl. I've loved being able to be the cheerleader of these great brands. And, I'm a forever learner. So the opportunity to work with other people and gain their insights and knowledge is something that I've always really valued. So it's not surprising now that I'm building something that involves, working with others and building a community and ultimately trying to make a difference to grow great brands. But the transition was definitely a great learning experience. I'm still learning about myself in this process, and how not to overfunction and how to ask for help and do things a little bit differently than maybe I would have done before, because as a founder, my role is different. So I'm super grateful for the journey, and I would say that what's important to anybody that's been going through their own transition is really leaning on the community of people that exist in this industry. And specifically for me, I have fantastic mentors and connections and women that I've met through, women in restaurant leadership, or kind of different groups, through the conference circuit and those connections, and those people really show up for you when you need them. And part of that is what you put into the network. And I think part of that is also that you're always exactly where you're meant to be. So super grateful for the journey and the experience. And now as I'm learning and transitioning, I'm building the plane and flying it at the same time
Yeah.
too. We're getting ready to launch this website. And every day though, I'm hearing validation from friends or people that are seeing what we're up to, or articles, that are written, or things in the news about how this fractional revolution is happening. And I just feel so privileged to be a part of it. And I
Yeah.
know that I wouldn't be here had it not been for that transition. So yeah.
I love that you called out that you're right where you're supposed to be, and I always try to share that with people or encourage that mindset, because sometimes you think, "Well, God, I'm not supposed to be here right now," or whatever that feeling might be, but there's a sense of impermanence, and
Hmm.
and we have these different roads that we take. If you let the Rascal Flatts song, right? All the broken roads that led me to you or to this moment, and I love that we all have these journeys that cumulatively create who we are now, right? The people that put impressions on us, the mentors, the jobs, the roles we've had, the
Hmm.
good and the bad, teach us all things we want and don't want, and then now you get a stand-up company and do it your own way. I think that's absolutely beautiful. I applaud you for it.
Thank
Chad?
you so much.
Yeah.
Tony, I'd love to hear you talk more about the timing of this
Mhm.
and the fit for our industry in this context. So, just thinking it through logically, right? People always value experience in their leaders, but we're in a time of great change, and I
Mhm.
would imagine in a time of great change, there's a premium on recent experience. And
Mhm.
a fractional has the ability to have concurrent recent experiences, and one thing can help inform the other. What have you heard, seen, thought of in terms of now being a particularly appropriate time for fractional because of that change that's going on in the world?
Well, I mean, I think it's actually what you just said. I think the fact that there's so much change happening in the world, it's absolutely the most appropriate time for fractional leaders, because first of all, you're going to get faster clarity. You're not having this lengthy onboarding process. You're not having to recruit these people. It's like you have subject matter experts. Um, you know, and and as I think about what that looks like, I mean, obviously we talk in COO and CFO, but our restaurant models right now are multi-channel. In the last 10 years, the whole way that we drive a restaurant, same store sales or traffic levels, is completely different. And that requires a certain level of expertise that, frankly, your traditional kind of seats aren't going to fill. And so, being able to tap experts into all of the different priorities, this idea that a business can run on three clear priorities, that just doesn't exist anymore, not in our industry. um, I sat with a team last week, and we were doing their strategic planning for the year, and they came in and they had 47 different priorities. And I said, okay, well, we're never going to walk out of this room with 47 different priorities. We've got to sequence and prioritize. And my seat in that room is to make sure that we are focused on the right things and that I'm bringing clarity. But as you go through the exercise, you recognize that there's only so many people in the room. And so businesses are finding themselves in a position where they have 4 or 5 things that they just never can get to. And those things are maybe just as mission critical as the top 3 things that they're focused on for the year. Um, so we're in a period of crazy dynamic change. Priorities are shifting all the time. Traffic is down. Profitability has never been harder to achieve. And what fractional leadership does is it provides the opportunity to get that very clear diagnostic strategic leadership faster. So businesses that are going to work with fractionals are going to have faster momentum. They're going to be faster than their competitors. They're going to be ahead of the trends because fractional leaders are working with multiple different brands. They're not just coming in as expertise, they're also learning through that process because they're working with other great brands,
Yeah.
leaders, companies, um,
Cross-pollinating, right?
all of it. And then you layer in a company like the Sea Society, where we're cross-pollinating and sharing ideas with one another and
There's a
and
B
helping
word.
to work together. That all creates momentum. And that's ultimately what people need right now, is that they need the ability to move. We don't have time, to sit in a boardroom for months at a time trying to solve one single problem. The reality is that these are very complex businesses now. And so I don't think that there's ever been a better time. I think as companies are going through the last couple of years that we've had in this post-pandemic reality, everybody's trying to figure out, how we can get more at the bottom line through, the pricing activities we do, and the marketing activities. And our food costs have gone up, and inflation has been crazy, and there's all of these kind of macro pressures that are happening. And quite frankly, with fractional leadership, you're getting the clarity, the leadership, the advice, the strategy at a fraction of what you're going to pay to hire somebody full time. So we can be a nice complement, or for a smaller brand, we can be the full time C suite. And that's a shift in mentality. The old organizational ways of doing things, frankly, is not going to suit how we accelerate our business into the future. And the future is now. We're going to have this conversation in 6 months from now. Our industry is going to look very different again. There's going to be new
Yeah.
technology and new ways of doing things and thinking about them. And I'll tell you that the fractional leaders that are in the industry, they're going to be the closest to that, because they're going to be the most exposed to the dynamic of finding real solutions.
That's great. Um, my ears perked up when you mentioned Whirl. Uh, I think Chad and I both proclaim ourselves to be Kens in this world of yours.
We love.
In the
Are you
world. Yeah.
and are you coming to Charleston?
I don't know yet. I'm bugging Danny about this, so we'll see.
Okay, you
Um,
should. I'm
I,
just saying.
I want to, so we'll see. But my question is, with women in hospitality leadership still face unique pressures, right? What advice do you have for women navigating growth and credibility in senior roles?
Mm. So I would say that I think so. Being a woman in the hospitality industry, there is a general feeling that you need to constantly earn your seat and prove your credibility. And the reality is that just being who you are is enough. So
Own it.
that's the first thing I would say.
Yeah.
Women are incredibly successful in this industry. You find with women that we're sitting in operation seats, creative seats, HR, people leadership seats. That is not by design. That is exactly who we are, and the space that we live.
Yeah.
Um, and we have the opportunity to be incredibly influential. But early on in my career, and I think lots of women struggle with this, there's this feeling that you need to maybe be a little bit more masculine, and that you have to um, struggle to find your voice in a room full of men, frankly. And that creates some conditioning that happens over the years.
Yeah.
And just being able to be authentic to who you are, and believing in yourself is really important as you go on your career journey. And the other thing I would say is find your tribe. Like, Whirl was a life changer for me. Quite honestly, like the women that I met at Whirl, I was invited to go to this dinner. I tell this story all the time. I was really tired. You guys know what the conference circuit's like. It's like, hey, do you want to go to this dinner? And of course, it's not a
Right.
6 o'clock dinner. It's a 9 o'clock dinner. And it's with a bunch of women I don't know. And I'm exhausted. And I just said yes. And it was the best decision I ever made.
Yeah.
I sat at the table with these 11 women who have become my tribe. And,
Shout out to
there's
Amy Hom. I bet she was at that table.
Amy Home was not. Amy
Oh,
Home was not at that table, but Amy Home was at the women's leadership retreat that we hosted in Sun Valley this year.
okay.
And so, because now the 11 women, we're now 25
Wow.
women, and we took a trip together. We connect on a regular basis. We are in each other's corners. We've got multiple text threads going, but you have to find those women. And I'm telling you, it's like you go to these events and you get what you put into them. And for me, just saying yes to that dinner changed my life.
Yeah.
And we need it. Female leaders in this industry need connection, and there's no better women than there are in the restaurant industry. These women are passionate, they are supportive, they are vulnerable, they are real, they are honest. I consider myself so lucky to be amongst them. And there's something so unique about the women in this industry that when I was going through my own transition and figuring out what I wanted to do, I knew
Yeah.
that the only place I wanted to stay was right here in this industry. So, um, so definitely, find your tribe, put yourself out there. It's very different than it was 20 years ago. Women were very competitive. It was really hard to make friends. That doesn't exist here anymore. And Whirl is a fantastic place to be able to go and do that and build those connections.
And for those listening, just to make sure they have the date of the event, just to make sure they have it locked in. When is that?
So that's going to be I know it's February 25th, 26th, Charleston, but I think that they just sold out
Oh no. Next year, folks.
We knew it
next
was
year.
coming up. We knew
Yeah.
that they were running out of spots.
Yeah.
Next year. But I will say I do sit on the board for Whirl as well. And following kind of the Whirl page on LinkedIn, and Satine who leads the charge on that. There
Isn't
are
she in Italy right now?
She's in Italy. Yes, she's speaking. This is her first time in Europe, by the way. Like,
Wow.
so excited. And even
Yeah.
this whole story, this thing didn't exist a couple of years ago, right? Like this
Yeah.
is like the
Mm.
third year.
She's
Um,
somebody I just root for, just there's people that you see
totally.
out there that just go, go, go.
Totally. She's a huge inspiration to all of us.
Yeah.
And she brings together weekly calls, and there's an opportunity to connect and network through there, even if you can't go to the live event. And there's always something in the fall too with QSR and FSR. There's
Yep.
always a world component to that. So
Yep.
yeah, just get involved, be who you are. And if you don't believe in yourself enough, I'll tell you the friends that you find, they're going to believe in you and they're going to help to push you and move you forward. So just stay connected.
Those are real friends.
Real
Chad?
friends.
So, Tony, let's say you're a brand and you bring in a fractional leader. What's the easiest way to set them up for failure?
Ooh,
Yeah.
treat them like a consultant and not like a part of the team. I
Mm.
think it's really the thing about fractionals is that we're not there just to consult, we're integrators. And so you need to provide them access, provide them time, allow them the opportunity to ask questions and learn and be a part of that team. We don't come in and just say, here's the problem that you need to solve and here's a few ways to solve it. We say, we've identified the problem that we need to solve. Let's roll up our sleeves and do it together. And so it's really important to do that. And I think the value add that you're going to get through that is you're going to get that great leadership. Your team is going to be able to be developed under that leadership as you're solving that problem together. So yeah, biggest way to set them up for failure is just treat them like a consultant that's just here to come in and provide some advice and step out. That's not even nearly the value that you can extract.
Well, I really love that answer, and it resonates so much. And the same thing what we do with the tech companies. It's
Of
exactly the
course.
same.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, we want to help.
Yeah,
Like you don't get
yeah.
into this because you just want to make a buck. You get into this because you genuinely care and want to solve problems and work together. So that's really what you're paying for. You're paying for that benefit of those results and the development opportunity that exists for your team in that process.
Yeah, it's the problem-solving thing I anchor on so hard, like, the gag I tell people when we talk about our company and how we started is Chad and I, the first time we actually hung out was in a jail cell in New Orleans, and it
No
wasn't
way.
because we were criminals, it's because we were 2 very square nerds that didn't wanna go drinking with everybody, so we went and found an escape room, and we broke out of that escape room together. Now we're solving problems and puzzles for our clients today. So it's just kind of that inquisitive mind, that desire to solve something. Actually, I can't walk away when I can't solve something. It's really
Right.
hard for me too.
Right.
Chad, I got before I go into the rapid fire plane landing part of this, and you're gonna have a bunch of rapid fire questions here coming up, just so you know. Anything else you want to ask Tony before we go into the hard hitting?
My last question then, I just want everyone to know timeline, right? So, like,
Yeah.
where are you guys in terms of launching, growing, taking on new clients? Like, what does that look like for the start of the year?
Yep. So we are officially launching our website next week. So I don't know when this is going live, but this will be, mid-January. We're ready. We're already
Okay.
working with clients. I'm already placing fractionals
Hmm.
and we're getting the word out. So
Awesome.
hopefully, yeah, we'll be at hosting a cocktail event at Whirl, and I'll be speaking there and whatnot. But we're ready, and the door is open. Door is open to fractionals as well as great brands that are looking for talent to help them achieve all of their business goals. And you can find us at joincsociety.com.
Boom.
There it is.
All right. Are you ready? Now,
I
these are
think
meant to be
so.
fun and quick. You don't have to think too hard on them. I got
Okay.
about 6 of them ready for you, okay? So, here we go. Gut check. When a decision's on the line, do you trust instinct or do you trust data first?
Uh, Data
That's the right answer. Red flag radar. What's the fastest sign that a company has a culture problem?
turnover.
Okay, I'll take that. Failure reframed. What's a professional failure that ended up changing you for the better?
Oh, well, I mean, I would say, I think I'm evident of failure reframed right now. I'm doing all of that every day. I'm living it, man.
Okay. Brand soul test. What's one thing a brand should never sacrifice no matter how the growth pressure comes on?
Mm, the core reason that their guests love them and that core
Ooh,
heart connection.
ooh, ooh. We should tell that to companies that keep scaling and changing their menu for better prices for their food.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Career advice to ignore. What is a piece of popular leadership advice you quietly disagree with?
Oh,
Ooh.
I like this one. Um, that burnout is solely the responsible of a company to manage and not of the individual.
Ooh. Okay. I want to drill into that one later. That
Yeah.
is a good answer. I like that.
That's a whole thing. It's like, everyone wants to talk about, I'm burned out, but that starts with self. So you've got to figure that out. And
Yeah.
that's some of the hard work that needs to get done. So less about the buzzword and more about looking internally to see what you can do about it. So we can chat.
That was a zinger. I loved all of that. That was great. All right. And two personal closers. One, what's your win you get every morning when you get up? What's the first
Oh,
thing you do to have your first win of the day?
well, the first one of the day actually happens when I'm at home,
Uh,
and it's when my daughters come in and deliver me a cup of coffee every morning. That is
Ooh.
Oh.
I don't know how we managed to make that happen, but that is a perfect way to wake up every morning and know that I just have to reach my arm over to, get my cup of coffee. So
And it
that's
happens to be in the Sea Society mug.
happens to be in a Sea Society mug. And then when it's not snowing where I live, morning wake up silent walk is really great. And I miss that right now because I'm living in an avalanche. But
Yeah.
just being able to get up and have that 15 to 20 minutes of silent time before I go into the marathon day and start taking on the world.
Love it. You may have actually answered my last one here with that, but let me see. So when the noise gets loud and
Hmm.
expectations pile up, what's one ritual, habit, or place that helps you reset and come back to yourself?
Mm. Honestly, it's my shower. It's being able to just kind of be in a dark cave and um, give myself the ability to just let my brain go. And I was talking with somebody recently about it because I've always said I'm never good at meditation. I can never sit
Yeah.
still long enough to do it. And what we realized was that that is my meditation ritual, and that you can actually meditate anywhere. And people meditate in all sorts of different places with their eyes open. But it's just allowing yourself the space to decompress and disconnect close enough so that your brain can start to be creative again. And so that's a daily kind of ritual. I love to just sit in that space and not think about anything else.
Yeah, it's also that white noise of the shower, and for
Mhm.
me, I'm a minty
Yeah.
guy, so the minty soap wakes you up, or just there's a lot of wisdom in that. I usually have a lot of
Yes.
passive aggressive conversations in the shower with people I wanted to tell off the day before. Well, Tony, you are amazing. I am so excited for what you're building with Sea Society. I expect big things. Chad and I were talking about what this means to the future of our industry, stepping into a slot that needs more talent, more attention. I mean, I think you have a combination for success here. I don't know the bench you've built, but I can only imagine based on where you've come from and the network you've built around yourself. Chad, anything before we wrap up for today?
Think you said it perfectly. I also expect big things from you, for you, with you, Tony.
You
So
sound
this has
like
been
Dumbledore in Harry Potter.
I
Great
know, I
things.
know.
Wait, that was
Great thing.
Ollivander's wand. Yeah,
Yeah.
never mind.
And he was right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, girl wizard right here.
Very cool. And Tony, if people want to find you, I know you're
Mhm.
you're you're present on LinkedIn. You mentioned your website. Is there any other way you'd like people to be able to interact with you? I know you're coming up to Worlds. Or any other shows you're going to be attending soon?
Well, I mean, I'll probably be at most of the shows this year, so
Okay.
I'll definitely see everybody there. But no, I think LinkedIn and join Sea Society, like it said. That's our website. That's going to be a space where you can kind of follow along, and eventually we'll figure out the Instagram stuff and all the other socials. But right now we're focusing on our industry and connecting with the people there in LinkedIn primarily.
Love it, love it, and open invitation when Chad and I have the podcast from the events we're at. Just consider yourself invited to be a guest on there and just
I
continue to tell the story to us.
I would love it. I can't wait to see you guys.
Hey, okay. So, well, then I think we were ready to land the plane, so to speak. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been Toni Ronayne with the Sea Society. Obviously, an impressive professional. I'm excited to see what she brings to the world. Actually, I already have an idea what she brings to the world. I'm excited what she's about to build in this world now. And if you have any challenge getting a hold of her, Chad and I will find her and seek her out for you. But for now, this is the Chat GTM podcast signing out season 2, episode 4. It'll probably drop in about 2 weeks from today just to get into our production queue. But I'm so excited for you, and I look forward to seeing what you do next and helping tell that story next time we run into you. So for now, everybody, the last thing I always put into this, my little act of call it virtue signaling or altruism, but random acts of kindness. Sprinkle that stuff everywhere. You never know whose day you're going to make better just by one small act of kindness. And that is the heart of hospitality as well, right? That please, that thank you, that open the door, shine a light on somebody and make them feel warm because you're there. So with that, we're signing off and we'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.
Thanks,
Thank
Tony.
you.